Hey Hornets, how are we? Welcome along to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Thank you for your company on this Sunday evening. If you're listening to this on audio, thanks for joining us on what is a juicy podcast. I think that's probably the word I'm going to use because there's a lot to get into today. Obviously, we're going to talk about the defeat at Coventry, the 10 minutes after full time, which felt, as the title says, like a watershed moment in Gino Pozzo's tenure at Watford Football Club, but also with Tom Cleverley as well. We're going to be touching on that game, looking at the performance, predicting the rest of the transfer window, and I'm sure a lot of you will be thinking, what's there to predict? But there's been a couple of rumours that's been coming out today, and then we'll look ahead to the rest of February to talk about that as well. On the pod with myself, Jacob Colshaw, Charlie Zazera, and Sam Eukin. I'm going to cross to Charlie first because, Charlie, you weren't with us on... Sam, when did the rumours come out about Clevs?
Was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday.
And we jumped on an emergency pod and Charlie was busy. He's a busy man. He's got a lot going on. Charlie, how's your weekend been? How's it been from that moment onwards? Has it affected your mood? Have you managed to block out the noise? What's been the vibe with you?
Yeah, no. Apologies for not jumping on. To be honest, my mood, I was not in the right frame of mind to talk about Watford, if I'm being completely transparent, but I thought you guys did an excellent job. So if anyone hasn't watched that yet, make sure to check that out. Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster of a week, really. On Thursday, seemed pretty low. You guys articulated that really well. And then a couple of statements, which I'm sure we'll get into between then and the game. Had the game yesterday, which for me, we'll get onto it, but me ended on a bit of a high in terms of what happened after the game. And just like trying to chill today and trying to get back to normality. So yeah, supporting Watford is it's a funny old hobby, eh?
Yeah, someone actually, one of my mates said to me, he's not a Watford fan. He's like, doing a Watford fan channel or Watford podcast, and I'd love to hear what the voice of the Vic, Do Not Scratch Your Eyes, From the Career, and all those guys say. There's always something to talk about. There's always something going on, particularly in the last 10, 12 years or so. Sam, how did your mood change from when we did the podcast afterwards? Because I have to admit, mate, when we did it, I was more annoyed by the end of it. So when you came away from that one, was there any change in feeling about how you felt about the situation?
I was just feeling pretty low, to be honest with you. I must start off that, particularly after the game yesterday and one day on, I just feel pretty drained by the last few days from a Watford point of view. It's been an absolute roller coaster and everything that we've come to expect, like you say, in the last 10 to 12 years. But I just came out of the stream on Thursday, and after talking about it, I just felt pretty flat. And I've been really good over the last few years, actually. I've got a lot better of it almost as I've got older in terms of Watford and football not impacting my mood so much, into day-to-day life. But I just couldn't help it on Friday and before the game yesterday, just feeling just a bit low, like almost having a part of the heart of Watford being ripped out of me and out of the club as a whole. Obviously, it's transpired that originally they were behind Tom Cleverley just for the Coventry game, and now they're supposedly behind Tom Cleverley for the long haul. Actions speak louder than words. But yeah, came out of Thursday feeling pretty flat. And now at the end of the weekend, I feel like I need another weekend just because of how exhausting it's all been.
It's one of those when you go on holiday and then you get to the end of the holiday and you're like, I need another holiday to recover from the holiday.
Exactly.
It's a big episode today. There's a lot to talk about, as always. Thanks so much to everyone who watched the last stream. If you missed that one, that was sort of our initial reaction to the rumours and speculation surrounding Tom Cleverley. It's been a turbulent few days, as he mentioned, going into the Coventry game. We're going to discuss that, as I mentioned. So make sure you grab yourself a brew. I've actually got a green tea and I've got a pint. So if I have to shoot off, lads, for just I'll let you know. A bit of housekeeping before we get into the discussion about Watford. Hertfordshire Mind Initiative, as always, this podcast is brought to you in partnership with Hertfordshire Mind. The initiative this season for £1 for every goal Watford score. 8 goals in after Moussa Sissoko's deflected effort. Own goal, more specifically, went in yesterday. It's £8 into the pot. And the Hertfordshire Mind event tomorrow at the Indian Sizzler in North Watford, next to that North Watford McDonald's. If you know the one, you know the one. Tomorrow night, delicious food, community connection, supporting mental health, £25 per ticket. So if you've not got anything going on your Monday night, you fancy curry, you fancy pint, you fancy meeting some new people, the link is in the description below to the tickets there. Okay, let's get straight into it. Let's give a bit of context, Charlie, just in terms of state of play since the last video and podcast we did. So We talked about Tom Cleverley's position. We talked about speculation around Pacheta. That was then, that prompted a club statement from Watford Football Club after that video, not from our video, but people talking about it, all the podcasts. And I think the first thing to say is the way the Watford fans online reacted to that news really showed the togetherness and a lot of people on the same page about what they think the right move in the right direction for Watford to take in. Anyway, after that speculation came out on Thursday night, Watford put out the statement. Watford confirms Tom Cleverley will be in charge of the match at Coventry City, which was yesterday. And the speculation over his position is just that, pure speculation. Now, this is in contrast to Watford's account on X on Saturday morning that said that owner Gino Pozzo's support for Cleverley remains firmly in place heading into today's game at Coventry City and well beyond. So we went from specifically the Coventry match to well beyond the Coventry City match. There's been no more reports of a new manager since that news. Charlie, we didn't get your reaction on Thursday last week about what was going on. You've taken a breath. You've seen the Coventry game. You were at the game yesterday. You saw the support for Cleverley. Just, if you can, give us your overall assessment of what the last few days have been like for yourself and what you've made of it all.
Yeah, I think the main emotion is probably anger. It felt like what happened with Rob Edwards kind of on steroids, really, like 10 times worse.
What a way to say it. That is the best way I've heard it described so far.
I just remember the moment when Rob went on like Thursday, and my girlfriend literally thought someone had died when she came in on Thursday and said, "What's wrong with you?" But it's for me, what's happened, we don't know. We don't have any insight at all. But looking at it from the outside and the rumours, recent results, Gino's done a Gino and he's approached another head coach. You can see the way, like what the rumours in terms of, if he gets us promoted to the Premier League, he'll get a lucrative bonus. The man's just got so many traits of like a gambling addict, thinking if we get to the Premier League, he's going to get X money, but he'll offer X money to get us there. It's just ridiculous. And we saw what happened, the reaction to it. And obviously they put that statement out on Thursday. Now, I feel really, really sorry for everyone working at the club because we've been lucky enough to meet those guys and everyone there. Mainly all of them are Watford fans, which is great. And they're all really, really great people. And you're going to see different statements and people might be moaning, but it must be so hard to work in that environment under such difficult circumstances. So obviously the first statement goes out and people pick apart the wording, etc. But to me, before the game on Saturday, I did get that tiny bit of reassurance where that second statement from Gino with his name to it says they look like they're going to support it. I mean, I'll put it over to you guys. It's there in black and white saying they're going to report it, saying he's going to support him. Do you think that's going to be the case? I don't know if we're going deep already, but do you think that's going to be the case, or would he happily, if the run continues, go back on his word and he won't care about the backlash and that statement getting thrown back in his face?
Sam, I'm struggling to believe it after what happened to Rob Edwards. And I think the come hell or high water comment, whilst it was made with the right intentions, ultimately came back to bite Scott Duxbury. Less so Pozzo because he didn't make that comment, but Scott Duxbury particularly. And we'll get on to Scott because some interesting comments from Cleverley after the game yesterday about his support for Tom. But Sam, when you read that statement that Charlie mentioned, did you believe it? Did you sit there with conviction and go, you know what, they're going to follow that through?
Yeah, there's two elements to the reason why I don't think they'll follow this through, to be honest with you. Number one was, as you said, Rob Edwards, come hell or high water. I know it was Scott Duxbury who said that, but we've heard words come out of from the board at Watford before that haven't transpired. Number two, the thing that you've missed out, Jacob, was obviously there were the two club statements, but also the non-club statement at the very start from the Watford Observer, when Andrew French, doing his great work as normal, approached the club to ask for comment on whether Pacheta was coming in. The club replied no comment, and then obviously straight after that, that's when all the backlash really, really started to ramp up. To me, that suggests that we're going to have the new man waiting in the wings, and I think Gino is just waiting for the opportunity now for Clevs to slip up even more potentially. I know we're not in the best run of form at the moment. We've spoken plenty of times about why that's the case. And I think for many, like myself, the last person I blame at the moment is Tom Cleverley. But I think that, I've said this already, I'd be very surprised with the trend in form that we're seeing at the moment and the lack of backing that so far. I think within 5 games, we'll be seeing this new guy in charge. I've sort of, looking at the fixtures ahead, I've looked at that Luton at home game, which could be the introduction for the new man.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just had a message.
And my mood's gone back down.
I wanted to give a shout out to Andrew French. Sorry, I can't reply to your text message, but Andrew is watching this, and his response to what was going on and actually contacting the club. For us, we needed someone to do that, and Andrew did it on behalf of us. So a huge shout out to Andrew, and make sure you go and check out all the stuff on the Watford Observer. Look, the way I look at it, and again, I have to make it perfectly clear, we don't know anything. Look, as Charlie said, we've spoke to people at the club to do, for example, that Ryan Andrews video with Miles Roberts. We know the people there, as Charlie mentioned, they're really, really good people. But there's a difference between the communication department and Gino Potson and Scott Duxbury. Let's make that perfectly clear, first of all. My theory is, and this is just a gut feeling, and judging by Cleverley's comments yesterday, which let's get that on screen now, actually, because that will give a bit more context to what I'm saying here. So if we go down, unfortunately, you've got to see a scroll through because I haven't prepared this, but there we go. Tom Cleverley basically said to 3 Counties Radio in the Mix Zone after yesterday's game, Scott Duxbury has always been a huge supporter of mine. We've got a fantastic relationship. He's always backed me, always told me to keep calm. There were some moments of uncertainty. My job is to focus on the team. I know Scott will always back me. Now, my theory is, lads, I think Gino and I think Gianluca Nani want someone else in. And I think they've wanted someone else in for a while. I think Scott Duxbury is the one who's probably delayed the inevitable from happening. I think he's the one who wants to keep Cleverley. And I think this leak or report has come out, and I think it's been in the offing for a little while. Because if you look at the track record of Pozzo, he's done this with, as I mentioned in the previous show, with Cisco, with Chris Wilder, etc., etc. There's loads of managers have been lined up before it's even happened. I think Pozzo was caught off guard a little bit, and I think there's probably going to be the time where that happens. Now, that is just a theory. I don't want to speculate. I don't know anything, but it just feels my gut, Charlie, that judging by those comments, Cleverley's got the full backing, as Rob Edwards did from Scott Duxbury, but the powers that be elsewhere aren't fully committed to the idea of Clevs. Does that add up for you?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons that I get so angry, because a kind of person I am, I'm quite what's the word? Hopeful, optimistic, and you look at people and you kind of think, do you know what I mean? Do the right things. If they say something, they're going to mean it. And the fact that Gino's put his name to that statement, my first initial thought was Clevs is safe, but that just might be me being a fool. And the fact that he's put his name to a statement when he didn't need to put his name to a statement, he didn't need to do a statement at all. And we know he doesn't really care about people's opinions, but yeah, I think one thing that I do think we all have right is I think everyone now understands and knows kind of where we should channel our energy into, who's calling the shots, whose fault it is. Because I know Scott's had a lot of stick over the years. I personally think his intentions mainly have been good. I don't know how he's kind of still working in that environment, especially after the Rob situation. But yeah, look, it's Gino. I was just surprised when I saw that statement with his name on it. It gave me a tiny bit of hope. But lads, tell me if I'm being an idiot or not. I might be.
Just to chuck it over to you, Sam. So I got a question. Shout out to Jack, one of our moderators. Jacob, does it fill you with any optimism the fact the statement came from Gino? Hell or high water came from Duxbury, which it did, of course. I think he's been caught off guard, if I'm honest, Jack. If I'm honest, that's my gut feeling. And just because of the track record, the amount of head coaches we've been through, if you're talking about a guy who's been through not that many over the time he's been the owner of the football club, I'd have a bit more, and maybe I'm being glass half empty here, which I am, but I just think it would hold a bit more weight, a bit more gravitas. The statement for me, until I see action, I'm struggling to really get behind it, Sam. So I'll throw that question over to you. Does it fill you with any optimism the fact the statement did come from Gino?
Yeah, it's spot on. Actions speak louder than words. And at the moment, for me, with everything that's gone on over the last few years, words are just words when anything comes from the board at Watford. doesn't fill me with any hope, unless this week, of course, money is spent and it's the players that Tom Cleverley wants or players that Tom Cleverley has clearly identified, not just, potential easy signings that we've mentioned in terms of potential Udinese loanees or players that come from Mogi Bayer or players who Gianluca Nani has identified, players that Tom Cleverley wants, hardened, experienced championship players. That's when we know if Gino Pozzo has meant the statement. And like I said before, it's really, really interesting what you say about Scott Duxbury, because I agree with you. I must start by saying I think Scott Duxbury has to, he has to go. My stance on him hasn't changed. The entire board probably need to go at Watford on the football playing side of things. That's Duxbury, Gino Pozzo and Gianluca Nani. However, I do think in this case, in a way, I think he's probably been fighting a losing battle for the entire season in terms of, I think there's probably been 3 or 4 times already that Gino Pozzo's wanted to pull the axe on Tom Cleverley. I think those times include after the that double game of Luton away, where we got absolutely battered, followed by Leeds away, where we lost 2-1. I think Gino Pozzo would have wanted to sack Tom Cleverley after those 2 games. I think after that, I think it was probably after Sheffield United, which came, I can't remember when Sheffield United was. At the start of this month, was it?
After our first loss of the season? Oh, no, there is one, sorry.
After the Cardiff game, after the 2 home games, I reckon he turned around and said, well, the away form's rubbish and the home form's gone. Let's make a change now. And then I reckon, obviously, we know what's transpired over the last week or so. There are 3 times there, or definitely at least 2, where I reckon Gino Pozzo has wanted to get rid of Tom Cleverley. And I think it's Scott Duxbury in the boardroom who's fighting almost the fans' corner here, because while Gino Pozzo's not at every game, Scott Duxbury is at the majority of them. He'll know the feeling inside the stadium, and without doubt, he'll say he doesn't, but he definitely reads social media and knows how the fans are feeling. So while Duxbury is probably time for him to move on, I think in this case, he's definitely not the worst out of the 3 between Gino and Gianluca Nani.
Because I remember we were all at QPR together. I thought that was the first time I felt that we've seen Watford performances like that before, where the ball might slightly just shift the way they're looking at things. But even the Fulham game, not the performance itself, but the fact that the Watford fans, like they were yesterday, were so behind Cleverley. And actually, just on the point of the Watford Observer, there was the poll that Andrew did about should Cleverley stay or should he go? And 97% of people who voted in that said Tom Cleverley should stay. So that says overwhelmingly the support is there for Clevs. Lads, what we'll do is we'll bring it back round to the transfers at the end, and we'll have a little bit more discussion about that. Let's get into the game yesterday, and I will bring up, Charlie, you'll be pleased to know, the momentum bar on the left-hand side. I've just bought a new monitor, so I'm going full Monday Night Football here. So there we go. If you can't see on screen, firstly, if you could drop us a review, massively appreciated. Momentum bar is saying Coventry in the opening stages were the more dangerous team. If I can remember correctly, Brandon Thomas Asante had a couple of good opportunities. They should have probably been 1 or 2-0 up. Watford managed to grow into the end of the second half, but the second half really was pretty flat from both teams. I think Coventry would have been frustrated that they didn't kick on from their goal. And then Watford, obviously, when the pressure was off, but the shackles were off, did show a late flurry. But that's kind of been the story of a lot of games this season, Charlie. So when you came away from the CBS Arena yesterday, or the Ricoh Arena, whatever it's called now, did you feel like that was a fair result overall, or did you feel that Watford could have got more on another day?
Yeah, I think a lot of Watford games, and I think this is something that's been different from previous seasons, a lot of Watford games have been quite tight in the balance. I know we got humped at Luton, but other than that, just like a lot of 2-1s, a lot of 1 goal in it. I didn't rate Coventry that well. You can see by the momentum bar. I actually think Frank Lampard, I hate to give him any credit, but I actually think him going pretty defensive nullified us, really. Sitting back to get rid of any space. They were playing with a back 5 as well. And I think that's where we've struggled against teams this season, when they're sitting back and we've got to be the ones who are attacking. If you go to the left, Jacob, you'll be able to see the possession. I think we had more possession yesterday. So could have been I don't think we'd done enough to win the game, if I'm honest. We had a couple of half chances. We could have drawn it, but yeah, I think it was pretty tight, to be honest. But one thing I was pleased about was how the lads applied themselves. If you look down to the dual stats, you'll probably see that we did well for tackles and stuff like that. So that's always a stat that I look towards, because if you're winning your duels, you're fighting, you're kind of doing the basics, which is going to help you win a game. So I just put it down to personnel. How many times have we said it about the Watford squad, how much money we've spent? They had Victor Torp yesterday, who's got the ability. He probably cost 4 or 5 million. Their squad probably cost 10 times more than ours, easy. And they just had more quality in those final moments. But I think that's just where we are as a club. But I actually thought we applied ourselves pretty well. Again, it's just a bit frustrating when we got that goal, and I've got a good screenshot to demonstrate that in a bit. We could talk about it, that we went for it, and we had kind of 10-minute spell where we looked like we were going to get that equaliser. It was just a shame for that injury time was absolutely dreadful when we couldn't play any passes, and it was just like
that was the worst injury time performance I've ever seen. Oh my word!
Yeah, it was grim. But yeah, so in summary, I thought it was a bit of a meh game. I didn't rate them that much. Like, we could have drawn it on another day, but how many times have we got away with a win? So I think this season now it's probably equaling itself out. But the problem is, at the start of the season, we were winning loads of games where some maybe we didn't deserve to.
Sam, just on I completely agree, Charlie. On the lineup Clev's put out, it was 5 changes. And most notably for me, Sam, when you look at that team, I mean, Morris came back in after a long period out. Dele Bashiru came in from the start. I look at, obviously, Chatford come back from his injury. You look across the board, but the biggest omission, Sam, without a doubt, if we scroll down here, was this man, Moussa Sissoko, who has been the club captain this season. He's played the majority of the fixtures when he's fit. That was a big call from Cleverley, one that I have to admit I didn't expect, one that a lot of Watford fans have been calling for. Firstly, were you surprised that he was dropped? And number two, were Watford better without him?
I think it was first of all, before I answer that, I'm actually quite surprised with what you both said about Coventry. I thought they were really good. I think across both games this season, the 1-1 draw at Vicarage Road, obviously they were under Mark Robbins and under Frank Lampard this time around. I actually think they looked pretty decent, to be honest with you. I thought they didn't really have to get out of second gear and look really well drilled. They all knew what they were doing, and player like Torp in the middle, I know he cost money. I thought he was great, and I thought they did really well.
Just on that, I don't disagree with that, Sam. I thought they played some nice combinations. You could tell it. I think there's 4 wins on the bounce now for Lampard, but I didn't look at their team and go. I felt that there was a missed opportunity to get out that team. I felt we made it quite comfortable for them. And whilst I thought they had a good game, sure, I thought particularly in the opening stages, they moved the ball really, really well. But my word, at times did we make it easy for them in that midfield. I thought he was having to do some heavy lifting with Kiembe. And as you say, I thought they were the better team and they deserved to win for me. Yeah. In the second half, they didn't capitalise on that momentum they had in the first half. But I didn't come away from it going, God, we've been played off the park there. That I felt that Watford didn't hit the standards that need to be hit to beat that team, if that makes sense.
Definitely, and at the same time, I don't think it was an effort problem yesterday. Actually, I just think Coventry ultimately had the better quality overall, and we had that lapse of concentration for the first goal, which Charlie will get into in a minute, and of course the second goal was a nice free kick. But going back to Sissoko, I actually thought that the most interesting thing was when he came back on, he didn't take the captain's armband for the first time this season. That's happened because when he's been on the bench previously, normally he's taken the armband straight off, and I'm not sure if you've got the picture up there, Jacob. There was a very telling photo of Tom Cleverley looking over at Moussa Sissoko at full time, giving him a bit of a harsh side eye, potentially, which hopefully we'll get on screen now. But yeah, I think we definitely looked like a lot better yesterday without... God, the picture can speak 1,000 words right there, my word.
Take about the photographer.
Capture that, Sam.
Wow, I know. But I did think we struggled in midfield yesterday, but I don't think Sissoko would have been the remedy to that. The big thing that I noticed in the game was, first of all, while he doesn't stop running, Bayo's performance was infuriating yesterday. He was offside about 5 times in the game. I was absolutely livid with that. But the big difference for me was if you look at Bayo, potentially his stature, his runs and that sort of thing, and compared to who they've got up front in Ellis Sims, particularly in the first half where they were shooting towards us. He didn't have his best game yesterday. I've seen Ellis Sims play a lot better. But in terms of what he can do, in terms of the ball goes towards him and the ball's able to stick to him, he's able to hold it up, bring in other players. He makes intelligent runs. The quality is so different. And Watford are we're dying for a striker up front. And not even yesterday for the goals, just someone who can keep the ball up there and bring in other players. Because yesterday when we were under the cosh and Coventry are dominating the ball, particularly in the midfield areas, when we're breaking up play, we just need someone who the ball's able to stick to up front. And Bayo just can't do that. And I was so frustrated with his performance. Very rarely is my head almost on Mars with a player's performance, but I had that with Bayo yesterday. My
Your
word.
head's always on Mars, Sam.
I know, but the fourth or fifth time or whatever it was, I don't know how many offsides it was, but there were 3 in the first half in the space of about 15 minutes, and I was livid after the third one. Just watch the line. Just watch the line.
Do you know what, Sam? The period of time you're talking about as well. There was a phase in the second half of 10 minutes and he was offside 3 times. And he had the audacity to turn around to the other players and go, quicker, quicker. I'm like, mate, hold your run. Look, it was, I'm trying to think of sort of standouts. Georgie comes out on the ratings as the highest rated player. Charlie, Vata was quiet, I thought, and Gakia really struggled. He came off at half time. Laroussi's head was on Mars. From the second half onwards, Deli Bashir, it was a lot to ask for a man who hasn't played a lot of football recently. So, Charlie, when you look at that team, were there particular players you wanted to talk about and their performance, both good and bad? Well, I'd say good. There wasn't a lot of positives, but I guess the subs had an impact from Cleves to an extent.
Yeah, I want to do one on one of the subs a bit later on.
Okay.
I thought Porteous did pretty well. To be fair, coming back into the team. I thought Tom Deli looked pretty assured, and I think getting him minutes, I think he's been a massive miss. But yeah, I might as well do it now. Let's just get through the first goal because I've got a bit of a quiz.
Before Charlie gets on screen, if you are sorry to bang that drum while he's getting up on screen, if you could leave a like on the video, subscribe to WD18, comment down below your thoughts as always. Always have to do that. But if you could get them in, we've got our numbers at the minute have been pretty incredible, actually, the amount of people that are engaging with our stuff. So really do appreciate it. And yeah, goes a long way. And if you're on audio, drop us a review. Charlie, hit us with the first goal.
And I'm really sorry for the people that are listening on audio because this is not going to help, but I'll try and describe it as much as possible. But a bit of a quiz before I get into it. This was when Victor Torp makes contact with the goal. Who do you think is at fault for the first goal? You've got a few suspects in there.
Tell you what, this is a hell of a quiz, by the way.
Get in the comments. Who do you think is at fault for the goal? You've got Ngaki is the nearest man, Porteous, Pollock, Morris in there, Kayembe, Tom Deli, and Bio's at left wing back there.
Porteous?
Sam?
Sorry, I was on mute there. When watching it back, I actually think we just have to stop the cross. I think whoever it was, Laroussi and Bio on that far side when the ball comes in, I thought both of them looked like they were jogging when they were trying to stop the cross.
Fair comment. This is the start of the move when they're building up Coventry, and this is Victor Torp here, and he's already pointing. And this is something that we've gone on for ages, and sometimes our defence has taken a bit of a battering, but Michael Seals, bang on. Kayembe just doesn't know where his runner is and hasn't sniffed out danger at all. So this is Torp before it's even in their half. He's saying he's going to make that third man run. Next slide. Does it again. Look, he's got the space. Kayembe just watching the ball, not looking. And look, I know you've got Ngakia here, who is the nearest man, but Ngakia, how many times have I said about kind of playing with a back three and getting overloaded, and Bidwell's about to make this run here as well. So Ngakia's kind of got to deal with two. I think you're right. What you're saying about here, and this is maybe an issue to do with our shape. Interestingly, when Jacob showed the predicted lineup briefly, we actually done something a bit different out of possession yesterday, where we played 3-4 and then George in the middle and Vata and Bio up front, and that's why you've got Bio at left wing back trying to defend because he's kind of breaking that ground. Tom Deli's gone over there as well. Two people you don't want to be covering. I think that left side was a real problem, especially that first half. I think James Morris struggled physically. I think they were attacking that. Asante was putting himself down. Laroussi, I don't think he's the answer. I don't think he's good enough. They put the ball in. you've got here. Should Porteous know and get out to talk maybe? And Gaka's got Bidwell to deal with, but at the point of the goal, I just think Kayembe in that move has just done absolutely nothing to help the team or be that shield or know where the runner is or communicate with the defence. Look, it might be a bit harsh just identifying him, but and it's not just him. I just think we haven't got, I said it in the last stream, we haven't got a midfielder with any defensive nous or a defensive bone in their body that senses danger, and it just really exposes our defence. So that was a real killer for me, and I think that just kind of took do you know what I mean? That was a big blow for us, and we struggled in the first half. We did kind of get back into that, but that's when Coventry really got their shape. And Sam, what did you think of the first half? Did you think there's anyone that I missed out there who played well or not?
It's difficult to say who played well. I think it was the first time in a while that Georgie's been able to get himself into space or into those pockets that we've seen him previously. I just think at times he literally had no one to play the ball to or pass to. Larousse at left wing back, particularly in that first half, was terrible. His crossing particularly was awful. At right wing back, we know Jeremy Ngakia's limitations. I actually thought Ngakia was okay defensively yesterday. I just think going forward, he's got certain limitations. So I thought Chapatatse actually was a lot better yesterday. I think he's had a bit of a dip in the last few weeks, whether he was carrying a knock, he sat out of a game. Was it on Tuesday night or last weekend against Derby? He sat out. That's potentially a reason why. But I also think teams are just crowding him out of games as well. So I thought Georgie looked like he was close to his best yesterday. And like you say, actually, I thought Porteous actually was improved yesterday as well.
Yeah, I agree, lads. One of my biggest takeaways yesterday was our need for a new left wing back. I mean, if you're going to play it three at the back, Larousse, I'm sorry, is not the answer. Unfortunately, there was a moment in the first half where he went down on the left-hand side, and the commentator, obviously I was watching it at home. First thing to say, the Watford fans were brilliant. I heard, you could hear them loud and clear all day. Second thing was, the commentator suggested that Larousse, the commentary player, should kick the ball out. About 30 seconds later, he was rolling around. He's up on his feet, sprinting back. And that's the sort of stuff that I think we just see too often now with players that we've signed, really. And yeah, it might be a little bit old school. It might be a little bit sort of, get on with it. But I think of the best teams that we've had at Watford in the Championship, and they had that edge. And even, when Charlie, you were saying about like defensive nous in the midfield, we miss someone like a Jake Livermore. We miss someone like a Jake Livermore who is not the sexiest football players, but my words, does the right things at the right time and does the simple things well, and actually thinks about what minute it is in the game, how we're going to play this. We're near half time. Let's manage the game. We don't have anyone on the pitch really, and I actually felt a little bit sorry for the centre backs yesterday, because Morris, I thought his passing was trying to be positive as possible. I look at Pollock, who was doing his best, as you say. Porto was fine, but there's absolutely zero protection in front of those lads. And the two wing backs, as you say, Ngakia tried, Larousse I thought was poor. But you're just leaving those three lads so exposed. And one of them isn't even a centre-back in Morris. He's a converted left-back. So it's like, what more can you do, really, when you're looking at that, Charlie? But we went into the break 1-0 down. Watford's kind of had a little bit of momentum judging by the momentum bar going into half-time. Clev's changed it at half-time, Charlie. Bold again, 5 changes for the starting lineup. He brought on Andrews at half time for Ngakia. Was that a change that you saw making? And then it was Sissoko, a banquet, Ince, Dumbia. He used all 5 subs, 3 in one go on 79 minutes.
Yeah, I liked it. I wanted to talk about Ryan, because I think Ryan's been quite hard done by this season. I think I can't remember him really having a bad game. And when I looked at the numbers and I compared him to an Ngakia, to be fair to Ngakia, his defensive numbers are really strong, are up there. I just think Ryan he has so much going forward, and I think when he came on yesterday, he was probably the biggest positive for me. When he came on just to threaten them, this was kind of when we got the own goal. Ryan making a positive run, and look how many bodies there are Coventry wise compared to Watford. And I think this just shows the difference between Watford when the shackles are off or when we're fighting for something. But this was the goal, and look how many Coventry bodies there are in there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you've only got 3 Watford bodies in there. And even Ryan, I don't think it was the cleanest contact, but he managed to put it in a good area where Sissoko capitalised. And then about 3 minutes later, where our tails are up, look at the difference in that about how many players Watford had in the box, where Ryan done really well on the byline again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And even look here, maybe Ryan should have just placed it back to Ince. James Morris is on the edge. Everyone's screaming for it. Everyone wanting for it. I think that's a bit of a mentality issue. But for me, I think Ryan has been, every time he's played this season, I think he's been really strong going forward. I can't remember too many times where he's had defensive lapses, but I do think it's clear that Ngakia is stronger. And I've just got a graphic up here quickly, and this shows defenders in the championship this season, goals and assists per 90, and Ryan's at the very top. So I think we're missing that kind of width. Laroussi's numbers are high, but his volume's also high, and Ryan is a lot more effective. For me personally, I would like to see in the next game. I think Abankwah done well when he came on again. He was quite positive. I'd like to see him as a right centre back. That's his position. That's what Connor told us in his video. And I'd like to see Ryan on that right, and I'd probably have Ngakia at left wing back. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's a difficult one because Ngakia isn't the answer to our left wing back problems, but I don't think there's much in it between who plays there between him and Laroussi. Ngakia's probably better defensively, but we're even more limited going forward than if Laroussi's edged because of that left foot. I'd be really interested in seeing what Andrews would be like further forward, and not having less defensive responsibilities, because we've spoken about this loads of times on the show and on the channel. I think Andrews' best trait is his ball striking ability, whether that's crossing the ball into the box, other than some overhit ones that have ended up in the rookery, or his shooting as well, which is arguably up there with one of the best in the squad. I'd be really interested to see what he'd be like further forward, because Ngakia,
What position, Sam?
Well, that's the question, because you probably wouldn't want him almost in a front three. I think potentially in that back five as well, with that cover of Abankwah, who can also shift further out wide as well. But yeah, we're at risk there of being pulled about. I just think if we're able to play Andrews and have him worrying less about his defensive responsibilities and just get him as high up the pitch as possible, delivering balls into the box, I think that's where we see the best of him.
Yeah, agreed. I think Sean makes a fair point here. Ryan Andrews not had a bad game. Asked Borja Signs at Norwich Way. Now, what I will say on Borja Signs, I think he's up there with the top goal scorers in this division.
Yeah,
but
I think he's out again next week as well. I think he's still banned next week, which is good for us.
Yeah, to be fair, that game, I remember doing the analysis of that. We talked about the approach and how aggressive Cleves was. So I don't necessarily think it was Ryan's fault. I literally think we went all out attack there, and then there was just space in behind. So I don't know. I'm not. Maybe I'm being too biased, but I just think he's been solid enough. I think whenever he's come on as well, he's made a difference, like he did yesterday.
But I think it kind of backs up your point, though, Charlie, because in that game we were on the back foot for a majority of it. But when we were on the front foot, like we were in the second half, it's when we actually started.
He scored that game as well.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah, he did. He did with his left foot. Look, I think there's definitely something to be said here. I think he is the definition of a wing back, Ryan. I don't think he's an out-and-out right back. I think he's an out-and-out right wing back who could bomb forward but has a slight bit of protection with the right centre back. And Porteous has been the man who's played the most alongside him. Sean went on to say Andrews could play right wing back if he has a midfielder that can help cover him. That's also true. This is the problem with the midfield. I mean, look, it's asking a lot of Dele Bashiri to come back in, but he's not really that type of player to provide cover. Kiembe, as I said, he's not a central midfielder. He's either a 10 or nothing, in my opinion. And Chapvadazzi's playing in the 10 yesterday, which I actually thought worked a little bit better than it normally does. But we're having to then play Vata as a number 9, really, alongside Bios. Then you're not getting the best out of him. I think it kind of goes what we've always said about this team. The squad building probably hasn't been as good as we would have hoped. We're halfway through. Do you know what? Let's get on to the second goal. Charlie, was there a stat about Kiembe you wanted to share, by the way?
I feel like I'm proper digging him out.
He pulled out of it. I like that reminded him.
So yeah, just a bit of context before they were awarded a free kick, because even this is kind of Kiembe had the ball, didn't he? And he lost possession. on the ball. And then when I was looking at the numbers, I don't know if everyone could see this. Possession lost yesterday, Kayembe 21 times, which is the most of any central midfielder for Watford this season. And I just think it kind of epitomised this goal where he had the ball in possession, he was just scruffy on it, or he spent too long on it, and then he took down their man. Now, the first free kick was actually quite probably about 10 yards behind this. Hits the wall, but where that picture came from, I think came from, and you might have seen it a bit better, Jacob, on TV, but Sissoko in the wall, did he turn around and use his arm?
Not that I could see, really, to be honest. I didn't think there was anything in that.
So how did they get a closer free kick?
Oh, are you talking about in the strike, or are you talking about the before?
So they had the first free kick, and then it hit the wall when it was a handball, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a handball. Sorry, I thought you meant in this. Yeah. It was a handball.
Yeah, so kind of Kayembe and Sissoko, I feel bad, they're in the firing line, but nice combination for those two before leading to that goal. And then, just watching it from the ground, I've now watched two back-to-back seasons where they've scored free kicks down that end, haven't they? And I was thinking, it's handy that their right back who scored last, he's not on them, but Victor Torp was on him, who is probably equally as good. My question to you two is, could Bond have done better? When I looked at it from the ground, I thought that's pretty central. And you can see here when he strike the ball, he's pretty central there. I don't know how good his view is, but the second one where the ball ends up, I don't know. For me, it didn't seem central. I don't know if he's moved his feet quick enough, or am I being really harsh today?
I thought, Sam, when I watched it live, that I thought, firstly, it wasn't in the corner, and immediately you do think, could the keeper have done better? I actually think he set up the wall wrong, and I think his view's been blocked, and I don't think he's seen it till late. But actually, could that wall have been slightly more over to the left-hand side to give him a better view? And what you can see is that if you could just circle those next to the Rusi, Charlie, those 3 or 4, he's got such a small gap to see between the wall and those 4 men there. And I think what's happened is he just hasn't seen it till very, very late. And by that point, it's too late. Whether he could have maybe just moved that wall slightly further to his right-hand side, or left it in terms of the way we're looking at it. But I think it was the wall rather than actually, like in terms of the way he set up the wall, I didn't expect him to save it, if that makes sense. Where if he had set the wall up properly, I think he would have had a good chance of saving it.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. That's exactly what I said in the ground as well. I said the wall is not right here. I thought the wall was set up wrong. And I think at that point, you're probably asking too much of him to save that just because of the way he set up the wall and he's seeing it way too late. It's actually probably not the best free kick, to be honest with you, because it's hit quite centrally. So yeah, I think it ultimately comes down to the placement of the wall, which is disappointing because from an experienced player, someone a bit more senior, I know he hasn't played too many games this season, Bondi, but I just think it comes down to the placement of the wall, and he saw it late because of that.
Just before we get on to the Watford goal, Charlie, there was a question for you here, Sam. From Adam, what's happened to Ogbonna? He was a real leader at the back when he played and really looked like what we've been missing. Richard, go on and say, agree, Adam. Why bother signing him if we don't play him?
Spot on. Yeah, he should be playing Ogbonna. I think his last game, I mean, he's come on in the league, but the last time he started would have been Fulham. And I know we conceded 4, but I actually thought he looked okay against Fulham as well. And pre-injury as well, we were really, really impressed with his leadership skills. And I think particularly in some difficult defeats, such as in that Luton game, I think he was one of the very few Watford players who came out with any credit at all. I'm really surprised not to see Ogbonna in there. And particularly yesterday in a game like James Morris, I know that, I think cleverly cited the reasons why Morris played was because of that balance on his left foot. But Ogbonna is also left-footed, isn't he? So I do wonder what the reasoning was potentially behind why playing Morris over Ogbonna. I think it could be a case, but like Andrews, I just think he doesn't fancy him. Again, I'm not sure if he was a player. Maybe there was an Italian connection there with Pozzo and Ogbonna. So I'm not sure. Maybe he wasn't a clever signing. He just doesn't fancy him. But I'd bring him in. I'm not sure why he's not playing.
Yeah, I think on paper you look at him and you say, in terms of technical quality, he's the best centre back we've got. So if he's fit and available, you play him. I mean, Matty's played right centre back, left centre back this season. I always thought Bonner, if you're going to play him in a back three, he's got to be in the middle. So then you probably move Matty, but I don't see why we're not playing him. There was another comment just before you do that goal. Oliver, interesting one. This, I think Ramirez's span deserves a chance in midfield.
I think we're lacking that physicality and dynamism.
And
I think he's very similar. He's a kind of a Pauser player, isn't he? Getting on the ball, moving it around, short passes. But is he going to be able to get around the pitch, put out fires? Is he going to have the experience? I'm not too sure. He looks really good in pre-season, and I hope he develops well. But I don't think it's the right time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't think it is necessarily the right time to bring in Ramirez of Spain, but I do have a theory in terms of what could end up happening this week and the last week of the window. Something to confirm. I think you two might be able to confirm it. The window isn't actually shut on the last day of January this year, does it? It shuts on the 3rd of February, so next Sunday it shuts. So we do have another week to go. I actually think we're going to end up cutting corners, and I think we've already seen that potentially the Backman injury, I think his replacement could be Miles Roberts if we're not able to send him out on loan. I think we'll see that the Quadro Bar replacement, I think we're going to see Michael Adepoku involved in the second half of the season. The other one, I still think we're going to recall Mileta Rajovic this week, who'll be the Daniel Jefferson replacement. So I just think ultimately we're cutting corners by recording loans and promoting youth players in those positions.
Is that the worst thing? Like giving youngsters a chance instead of
but
random maybe players from abroad who have injury records
But it's not what we need. The words that Tom Cleverley has used is hardened, championship experienced players. And ultimately, you do need a balance in there between the younger players and the more experienced players. And I think, as you illustrated there from Kayembe, the experienced players aren't doing enough for us at the moment. So I think that's where we really need to be targeting. And we could debate Rajovic or Bio for a whole day if we wanted to, a whole video on the channel where everyone's got a different view on that one. But
I'm out for that one.
I won't be there.
But we both know that neither of them are probably the long-term answer to our problems. So yeah, I just think not for this window necessarily, and it's a big risk throwing someone like Adepoku straight in there. Although I do think we will be seeing him at some point this season.
I just think Pozzo's experienced championship players are on big wages, aren't they? And that's why Pozzo doesn't sign them, because he'd rather get a younger player on small wages for a smaller fee who he can flip for big money.
Almost
that's a good point. Musa Sissoko is on.
And Charlie, most importantly, let's say you get a Dan Gosling in now. Where's his sell-on value for Pozzo? So if you bring him in, it might get you to the Premier League. Wait, let's put it perfectly clear. We're not getting to the Premier League at this moment in time. But he might get you up. He might improve the team. But let's say in a year's time, how are you going to flip him? And that's what he's always thinking. How do you flip players? And that's just the way he's programmed, which has worked to a point, but not anymore.
I just think with Cleverley, especially coming from working with the under-18s and the way the away fans were yesterday, and that kind of unified, and the fact that if you throw in a couple of the young kids, especially like in wide positions, like if we do want to play a 4-3-3 like Bar's position, and Adepoku, when he played definitely against Hearts and Hibs in pre-season, he looked all right, didn't he? I don't know how well, someone can tell me in the comments how well he's done at Solihull Moors, but I wouldn't hate that as an option instead of bringing in a random who hasn't played, who might, do you know what I mean, might have played for, who knows? But I think that could be an option. But predicting what happens in this next week, the window is mad.
Do you know what, Sam? You did say it shuts on the 3rd of February, but according to, as Jack Riley mentions, it shuts on the 31st according to the programme notes from Gianluca Nani. So
I don't even know that. Do you both think we'll recall Rajovic this week?
Well, it's a break in the Danish season, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so. My prediction is I reckon there's a strong chance Dennis will come back in. I can see it. Actually, do you know what? Let's before I even I'm digressing here. Charlie mentioned it there, the away end yesterday. Now, lads, talk me, as someone who wasn't there, talk me through what that was like at the end of the game and explain what happened for people who weren't there, who haven't seen the clips. Charlie, you're probably best to speak on it first, just because that video you took has done the rounds. A lot of people are talking about it. The captions of it, by the way, were phenomenal. I thought the away end was hungry, to be honest. I didn't think you were singing about cleverly. But just talk us through what that moment was like, because during my time supporting Watford, I can't think of many other times that's happened.
Yeah, before the end of the game, I thought throughout the game, the away fans were phenomenal. And Derby, they were phenomenal as well. But in that game, we took the lead after 4 minutes. So we had something to be happy about. This game, we were unified, we were clear, everyone was on board. And like you said, Jacob, you heard it through the TV, through the highlights. We did not stop. And I just think Watford fans, in recent years, especially as we haven't been that great, I think we've travelled in our numbers and we've been pretty good. So everyone who's made the effort, fair play. And yeah, I don't know. I know Sam had kind of different wording for how he felt after the game, but it made me feel. I'm getting a bit of goosebumps now thinking about it. It made me feel kind of like happiness, like a bit of joy. Like I can't remember seeing that when all the players were together clapping for that normal time. Normally, when Watford lose, a couple of them are straight down, aren't they? And obviously, Matty Pollock was at the front there, but there was about a minute or two when it was literally fans singing to the players and the players just sitting there taking it in. And it just felt me with kind of a bit of joy, to be honest, and it gave me a bit of a bit of hope, or it just made me feel good after the game, considering we lost. And I kind of walked out with a bit of a positivity, which I wasn't expecting after a defeat. So, Sam, did you feel different? I know you said you felt a bit emotional.
Yeah, I actually felt pretty... emotional is the right word. A mix of almost, I was really happy, but also really sad at the same time that it had come to this in these circumstances. You mentioned the last time you felt like something like that had happened. It actually goes far back as the FA Cup final when we were 6-0 down in the face of adversity and everyone had those flags out and whatnot. And almost I know it's completely different circumstances there, and the reason behind it in the FA Cup finals, because I think we all realised deep down that it was a potential that it's the only time we'll see it in our lifetimes, or it'll be another 50 years or whatever until we see it again. But yesterday, it just felt different because it felt like for the first time in a long time, we've spoken about connection over the years, particularly these last 3 years where players haven't been in it. It's been clear they've not been in it. But it just felt the connection was so clear yesterday. And my captain, Matty Pollock, right at the front, his interview was special afterwards as well, saying that, he didn't want to move. He could see the players know exactly how important the manager is, as he said over there, to the fans and to the football club as a whole. And the message is loud and clear to the players that we're right behind them, we're right behind the manager. But ultimately, it's the owner who is the issue here. And I could talk about it for ages, because for me, it's going to be very hard to top that as moment of the season, because I know, like, obviously, Vata had that last-minute goal, and we had some great wins at home in the first part of the season. But in terms of a feeling, particularly after a defeat, that was special. And I was so close to the front as well. I was on row 4 towards the front or whatever. You could see it in the eyes as well. It looked like Clevs was about to cry. The players didn't want to move, and it was a special moment.
It really cut. Sorry, Jacob. It really cut through as well. The amount of other fans, not just Coventry fans. I've seen loads of different fans saying fair play to the Watford fans, like all being loud and clear, and like the amount of. That's when we've done something right, when other fans are giving us compliments. So yeah, fair play to everyone who was in the way end yesterday. Because like Sam said, it was a really special moment.
Yeah, I think what was just from the outside, lads, seeing the videos, I honestly got goosebumps, feeling the energy, the passion, the support. But I think why it was the moment of the season, and will be regardless of what happens, was because it felt like it went beyond football, really, there, in terms of the team are fighting up against the odds, the managers are going through a turbulent period, and we're all sticking within it together. But then it's almost like team, supporters, and then owners and hierarchy are just a completely separate conversation, and they're not even in that, really. I mean, I don't know what it would take for them to be back involved in that conversation, to think that we used to sing about the owner, and now that is a very, very distant memory, to the point that we had a banner about the owner. I was think back to the Premier League days, how it can change so quickly. And that kind of leads me on to the transfer window, Sam. And we talk about how you can say the words, you can say these statements, you can put whatever out. It has to be backed up with action. But someone made a really good point to me yesterday. do we have the funds to go and do that? Can we dip into the loan market? Can we be a bit smarter? Which is what the Pozzo has been built on, being smart in the transfer market. And we have done a couple of times this season, with all credit. Look at Rocco Vata, someone who's come in on so cheap and done really, really well. I think a bank will turn out to be a decent signing. Chatford, that's his number one that they managed to, pick out of nowhere. But ultimately, we are missing quite a bit. And you look at the positions, we need a goalkeeper, we need a central midfielder, we need a left wing back, we need a striker. We need 4 signings, really, I think. And most importantly, signings, but Tom cleverly, and signings that he wants. Because there's all well and good getting in players, but if he doesn't want them, then ultimately we all know the score there. So someone made the point to me. We've spent £20 million on 5 sackings, if you look at the finances, which is pretty disturbing when you look through it, Sam. So let's go through this window and the end of it anyway. We've decided, we've found out that it was February the 3rd it ends. Prediction, what's going to happen? Actually, what you think needs to happen before the end? And number 2, what you think will happen?
Needs to happen. Goalkeeper, a left wing back, striker, and a central midfielder. That's a lot to ask for. At a bare minimum, the striker and the central midfielder, I'd say, are the 2 most important out of those 4. If I had to rank them, and I'll ask you 2 the same question, I'd probably rank them. I'd go striker, the most important, centre mid second, left wing back third, goalkeeper 4. Where would you 2 rank those 4?
I would go centre midfielder first, left wing back second, striker, then goalkeeper.
Jakey?
I think the most important position at the minute is that central midfield. I think we're getting pulled all over the shop in the middle. And ultimately, if you talk about the spine, goalkeeper, centre back, central midfielder, striker. At the minute, the only position which is nailed on in our spine is our centre back, which is Matty Pollock. Every single week, he's going to start. The rest of them, let's be honest, Bond's come in, done as well as you like to think as well as he can. Backman, in and out. Striker, at the minute, not good enough. Left wing back, I'd actually probably put the left wing back as the lowest for me at the minute, because I just think the spine is the absolute priority here. Central midfielder, striker, goalkeeper's not going to. Maybe one of the goalkeepers removed an AZ, in fairness, but Sam, what do you think will happen?
Like I say, I think we'll see Mileta Rajovic recalled this week. I think that one will happen. Like Tom Cleverley. The Dennis one's different because it wouldn't surprise me. I just also think it's a very easy one for a journalist to put together. Almost Emmanuel Dennis is looking for another club and Watford are going to want him. So I'd be waiting for another source on that one as well. But like I say, it would not shock me at all if that one happened. I think Rajovic will be recalled, and I think we'll see an Udinese loan come in, and that's it. And I think Epicelli will leave as well, which the news came out earlier as well for that. So I think 2 incomings and 1 outgoing this week.
Great comment here from Charlotte. Pozzo may well be smart in the transfer market with some players. However, we sign late career players on relatively high wages. He also pays a small fortune in compensation payments and wages to ex-head coaches, which I think pretty much sums it up to a T. Charlie, expectation versus reality. We got how many days left for this window? 3rd of Feb.
Well, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I've got a bit of a theory about why we struggle sometimes, especially in the loan market. And again, this is, to be frank, this is Gino's fault and the culture he's created. But I just think when we approach clubs asking for their players on loan domestically, they just go no. Like we've got such a bad reputation. When was the last English loan player we developed? Did you look at Jefferson, Courtney Hawes,
James Garner?
James Garner, and all these players talk. All the clubs know each other, so that's why you see clubs like Middlesbrough are always the first. Although Michael Carrick deserves he might be coming on the fraud list. Anyway, that's a side note. But I think that's a bit of an issue, because that's what we should be going for. Because we've done the video about the players that we think Watford should sign. There are plenty of players in the right profile who we can get on a 6-month loan deal, wouldn't cost a fee, might have to pay half their wages. We spoke about players like Harrison Reed. There's loads of them. But I just think that 3 or 4 championship clubs go for those players, and when they see Watford's name, I just think our reputation precedes us, and that's absolutely killing us. So that's a big opportunity. I honestly can't predict. I think we might see a few from Udinese, maybe a goalkeeper. But I'm not expecting much, to be honest.
One that could be leaving, well, Udinese rather than Watford, but his loan at Watford will be terminated, is Festi Ebisele. According to Damasio, the main publication in Italy, Galatasaray are in active talks to sign Festi Ebisele, who is currently at Watford on loan from Udinese. Galatasaray have already submitted a first bid, but that was turned down, which is one to keep an eye on. I assume that depends on his injury, really. Ebisele obviously went down last week, and whether that's as serious as first thought. Another man we were mentioned with was another Dennis Dragus, the Trabzonspor centre forward, Romanian forward as well, who obviously played at Euro 2024. Watford is seriously interested, according to reports in Turkey, but again, we'll believe it when we see it on that one. So, I mean, look, just Emmanuel Dennis is just one I want to throw over, lads. When you look at him, and you look at this will be the third time him coming back. If there is truth in it, Charlie, would you take him back? Alan Nixon reporting at the moment.
Here we go again. If it was a choice between Emmanuel Dennis and no one, I'd probably say yes. If it was Emmanuel Dennis, he hasn't played all year. You can't throw someone in like that and expect that it's going to take him. And even we saw that last year, I think, when he came, he had to drip feed him minutes, and he never still got up to speed.
I think Leeds at home was like the only game where he was like this is full on Emmanuel Dennis.
I think
about 10 minutes, and then he did a front flip celebrating and like pulled his like we'll always have that first half of the season when he was unbelievable. But like I said, if it was a choice between him and nothing, I'd get him in for pure vibes. But if it was him and someone else, I think someone else who's either played minutes or a bit younger. Yeah, that's my shout.
I think the idea and the reality of Emmanuel Dennis is two completely different things. I think the idea of him is the player that we had in the Premier League and a couple of the flashes of moments we had under Ishmael. The reality is a guy who's on big wages. I don't know if we'd have to cover all of it, but we'd have to cover a substantial amount of it. A player who hasn't played a lot of football, a player that would take a lot of time to get up to speed, a player which I'm not sure would fit completely the way we want to play, if I'm honest, and just feels like going back to your ex a little bit this one, when we all know it's not the right move to do it. But as you say, Charlie, if it's the option between, if we were talking about an Emmanuel Dennis who's had a full pre-season, different conversation, but that it's just, we cannot afford to bring in someone who isn't ready to go. And I don't think, judging by the amount of football he's played, and that's what we're having to say. I mean, this is the thing. Jack makes a good point. He did take a 70% pay cut last time. I mean, the way that was reported, I imagine, I don't know if that was the case. That's what was reported. Whether it was just the clubs agreed on the wage structure, we don't know. But the fact of the matter is, that feels like a move to move abroad, I think, rather than Sheffield Wednesday were linked as well, weren't they? Lads, just to wrap up. Obviously, it's been a bit of a jam-packed stream. Just one on Ebisele, actually. I didn't get your guys' thoughts on it. Mr. Briz said, I think Ebisele has been explosive on the wing, Sam. Not so much recently, but I think he's got a lot to offer. Hasn't really been a favourite for Cleverley, surprisingly, actually. Hasn't been in it. And when he's come on, he's been in at left back or he's been out of position. Ngakia and Andrews are ahead of him in the pecking order, and he's come here to play. He hasn't played. He's now potentially got an injury and a move to Turkey, whatever we say. Galatasaray is a massive football club. Would and probably on a good wage package as well. Yeah,
I mean, from the sounds of the injury, I think it's very similar to Bachmann. So we might not see him anyway until April time, end of March, April time anyway. And at this point, you might as well just free up the wages, I think, because Clevs doesn't fancy him. And I mean, it's wishful thinking because, to be honest with you, the reality is Cleverley probably won't be here by the time Ebisele is fully fit. So it might be a case of, just freeing up those wages if we can. I want to flip it over to the other wing-back role, though, the left wing-back role. And if we don't sign a left wing-back this week, I'd actually turn back to Ken Sema and try and reintegrate him. because I think he could. I think he can when he's made 2 or 3 appearances this season. He's hardly featured, if any games at all. Him at left wing back. To be honest with you, I'm done with Larousse, and at least with Ken, he's gonna give 100%.
Are you sure?
I don't think it's ever since this whole Imran, since I've fallen in love again with Imran Loser, I've had to find another player to constantly. But
we missed him yesterday, by the way. Miss Loser.
I thought you were about to say Ken.
No. Well, it's interesting, Sam. You mentioned, sorry to interrupt there, about Sema. He was linked with that move to Malmo, a move back to Sweden.
It's gone quiet.
Yeah, went quiet. It was reported. Normally, when it's like reported in the nation press of that country, because they clearly got the sources right. It's come out of nowhere. Ken's gets a move to Sweden, but it's just died down a little bit. And cleverly mentioned that, look, if the right offer was there, and the right opportunity, he'd be open to letting him go. But actually, if he's available, does he come back in, Charlie? Actually, I thought Sam's keen on the idea. Would you sort of reintegrate Ken in?
Yeah, as a body, left-footed, I think Larousse isn't up to scratch. I think going forward he can be bright, defensively, and the type of team that we are, we're not going to have possession for the majority of the game. So I think even Ken, who's kind of a winger, he's still scoring goal for Sweden, isn't he? Alongside Gorkrez and Isaac, so he can't be too far off it. So yeah, it's not the worst shout.
Just a couple of messages to wrap up. I saw a really interesting one from not a Watford fan, from Hacker. I've known Hacker for a little while. He's a Spurs fan. I dropped a like. Thank you so much, mate. And if you could, that'd be much appreciated. But this Spurs supporter is done with football today. Have a good one, lads. And Charlie, there's probably a few parallels to be made between both clubs at the minute, which I've got a couple of mates at work who are Spurs fans, and every time I say we're quite similar as football clubs, they don't like me saying that. But actually, there is some truth in it in terms of the alignment from top to bottom. And Troy Deeney mentioned it on TalkSport, didn't he, about how the one constant is the man above at both.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels. To be honest, I think Spurs are in a lot of worse position if you look at their league positions. Sorry, but there's been a bit of talks about if whatever happens to Klebs and how you'd approach it. I thought Spurs sent a really good message today. Had a really big banner in their big South Stand, is it? So I don't know, but yeah, solidarity with the Spurs fans at the moment.
Just to wrap up, lads. Sorry, this is a bit of a bumper stream. Looking to February very, very quickly, Sam. It's Norwich at home on Saturday. We will be doing a post-match pint, right, lads?
Yes, sir.
Saturday after the game. So if you fancy coming along at the Mad Squirrel to talk a bit about Watford, I know it's difficult at the minute, but if you want to have a conversation over a pint, we're always there. We're not always there, but we're there Saturday to have a chat about Watford, and we'll be doing a review there. It's Norwich in the early kickoff on Saturday, then Sunderland away, Leeds at home, Middlesbrough away, and then the big one, Luton at home. Sam, we look at those next 5. It's fair to say that is a season-defining period for this Watford team, and it almost begs the question, and not understood, but you then see why trigger happy Gino might have pulled the trigger to get that new manager bouncing inverted commas ahead of these games, regardless of the squad. And we can talk about where the areas need to be improved. He'll be thinking, can we get more points out of the ones we've got there? And that's a much sexier graphic that Charlie's got up there with the actual badges. Do you know what? Mine look like teletext, if anyone uses that. But yeah, Sam, looking at that period, their team's right at the top of the championship table, bar the one on the last game of February who are doing particularly well. But just the 4 before, massive period, right?
Yeah, huge period. Not just in terms of defining our season, in terms of whether we're gonna really push for the playoffs, because this league is so unpredictable. I know Watford aren't in good form, but we're somehow still clinging on to that battle, and teams all around us are dropping points and winning points, and it will go as it always does, right down to the wire. So Watford just need to pick up some form again, just to really try and keep that in there, or it would dwindle out into a mid-table season. So it's not only season defining for that, but it's also for Tom Cleverley, because like we said right at the top of the show, wouldn't believe a word that Gino Pozzo says, because if this month doesn't start well, and I look at those 3 games first, because I think these 3 games, I hate to say it, I just know because of the way Potslow works, I think cleverly, I'll be shocked if he's there come Luton at home, put it like that.
Charlie, gut feeling going into these 5?
Yeah, tough. I think Norwich game, absolutely massive. If we can get a win there, it will really relieve pressure and get everyone calm. They had a big win yesterday, but they've been up and down all season. I look at the other fixtures, quite reminds me of actually when Klebs came in. And he had a really tough run when it was Leeds, West Brom,
Southampton, wasn't there?
Southampton,
well.
who we only
really
just
well there.
lost to. But similar kind of run, and Klebs did it there with a year's left experience. Klebs has been performing miracles all season. We need him to pull a rabbit out of the hat at some point in February. Look, I'm not expecting us to win all those games, but if we can get a win if we can beat Norwich and maybe sneak another win somewhere and get 6 points going into that Luton game, to have a bit of momentum, because you don't want 4 losses and then some of the fan base will be a bit disillusioned and maybe think, is it the right decision to change? It's absolutely not the right decision to change, regardless, or if we lose those results. So yeah, if we can get 6 points for me in those first 4 games in February going into the Luton game, I'll be pretty confident. Because have you guys seen the league table recently?
I'll get it up in the. I'll get it up in the meantime.
I mean, one quick question.
Send on a high.
I mean, surely we'd take, if I gave you the offer losing the first 4 games if it meant us beating Luton.
Oh, depends if Klebs is in charge or not.
True.
I just care about that Luton game, to be honest. All my eyes are on that one, and I am less than a month to go, and I'm nervous already.
Get nervous.
I'm starting to get a bit shaky.
Oh, you know what? Just comment from Rio pretty much sums up how season defining this period is. We're 5 points off 15th and 3 points off the playoffs, as Sam said, season defining. As Charlie said as well, we're going to end it on a high. This is the championship table, just to wrap up today. And there you have it. That is the full board. I'm sure you have to. It might be a Specsaver's job to see all the teams there, but I mean there is quite a considerable gap between that team we play at the end of February. So we will see.
Towards the bottom, I can't quite see.
Do you want me to zoom in a little bit more?
Yeah, we've got to zoom in. We've got to zoom in. There we go. Lovely stuff.
The thing is, I really don't want this to bite us in the backside, but there is a considerable gap, and we'll see how we get on. Lads, anything else we want to wrap up with before we end today? It's probably one of the longest streams we've had. It's one of the best numbers we've ever had on here on WD18. So thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. I think we did it a little bit later today. I'm assuming that people have probably gone, you know what, I've got nothing else better to do on this Sunday night than to see 3 lads talk about Watford. But hey, that's why we're here. Lads, anything else we want to say?
I think we're the only club in world football where almost the 90 minutes of football is probably the smallest talking point. It's just because of everything that's gone on this week.
Charlie?
Stay positive, folks. Chins up. Tomorrow's another day. Let's hope we can get over the line against Norwich, and I think that everyone would be a lot happier if that's the case. So get behind the boys, and let's hope Clev can keep pulling off more miracles.
Absolutely. We will be at the Mad Squirrel on Saturday after the early kickoff against Norwich. I actually didn't mention 3 of those games are early kickoffs, 2 12:30s and 1 midday kickoff at the end of the month as well, which is interesting to see as well. Thanks so much to everyone who watched live today. Really, really do appreciate it. Brilliant attendance, as Jack says, for a late kickoff. And we will be back. James, really appreciate that. We need you more than ever at the moment, lads. Great stream. Thank you. Top man. Really appreciate the kind comments. Let us know your opinions or anything we discussed here today. Agree or disagree. Your thoughts on Watford at the moment. We always read them. We've had loads of comments across socials at WD18 fans. Just a few more things to remind you before you go. Post-match point Saturday, Hearts Mind Initiative, Indian Sizzler. The last time I banged that drum for that one, that's tomorrow night to go and have a curry and have a really, really good event there. And also the Mental Health World Cup. All the details are there if you want to get involved. I think there might be a couple of spaces left, and we'll try and get back to all of the messages that we've had on that, which you really, really do appreciate, guys. Take care of yourselves. Hope you have a great week. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to WD18. Comment down below your thoughts. And as always, up the Hornets. You odds.